Our next panel is actually going to be our lightning round. And lightning rounds are one of my favorites. A little bit different setup where we give each of our speakers a chance to step to the podium, do a quick presentation on one of their programs that they choose. And then we're going to follow that up with a short Q&A. So I think we should be all set. So if I could have our panelists join, I have the honor of moderating this. So first up, we have Amy Mon, our international specialist with NIST, Dean Skontras, VP of Public Sector for WIS, Stacy Bosjanik, Chief Defense Industrial Base Cybersecurity for DoD, and last but certainly not least, Melissa Weiss, Director of Vulnerability Disclosure Program, DC3. So we will have you guys. Yeah, I mean, hey, you got plenty. It's just. Yeah, exactly, right? Just put the feet up and get comfortable, right? So this is great. All right, so we're going to have Amy start first. So Amy, join me up here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and it's wonderful to be here this afternoon and with such a great group of panelists, and very much looking forward to the discussion. My name's Amy Mon, and I'm at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, or NIST, and we are a non-regulatory agency in the U.S. Department of Commerce, and we help to advance measurement science and standards and guidelines to improve economic security and quality of life. And one of the ways we do this is through developing cybersecurity guidance and frameworks that our U.S. government uses, but at this time still remains voluntary for industry. And on my end, I'm very fortunate to be able to help with the international engagement on our various cybersecurity and privacy resources and help ensure that we have that collaboration with international government and industry and bring in their expertise as well as our U.S. government partners and industry to help make our guidance truly global. And one document I wanted to talk a little bit about, since we'd recently updated it, was our cybersecurity framework, which is now on version 2.0. Just celebrated the one-year anniversary of that launch this past February. And that framework is an example of the process we take at NIST to work very closely with our government partners, who we very much value the partnership with and learning from them, our industry partners who really bring their expertise, particularly across critical infrastructure sectors and organizations, and really tell us the kinds of things that they're seeing and what would be helpful to put in a framework like this to help it manage cybersecurity risks. We also work across academia and, of course, closely with international partners as well. The first version of the framework came out in 2014, and we did update it one time in 2018, but asked our stakeholders if the time was right to make some more changes to help it be useful to manage cybersecurity risks. For those familiar with the previous version, it consists of different functions that span cybersecurity risk management from the preventive to a reactive phase after an incident. And the original functions included in there were identify or looking to see what might be at risk in your organization, protect, which gave some suggestions for how to safeguard those things you determined to be at risk, detect, which gave some suggestions for how to see if an incident might have occurred or notice if something is a little bit different from your current steady state, respond, which had suggestions for mitigating the consequences of an incident, and recover, which had suggestions for how to restore your services and take actions and lessons learned and build those into your cybersecurity risk management plan for the next time. So all of those functions still exist in this current version, but after talking extensively with stakeholders, we learned that it would be helpful to add a sixth function of govern, which really helps people to leverage the people and processes and procedures in their organization to help better manage cybersecurity risks. So that is one of the biggest changes, is expanding and adding that new function. We also heard the importance of building out language on supply chain risk management and really helping put guidance to look at risks and how to manage them, not just in your organization, but across your supply chain and with vendors you may work with. Also heard that continued importance of international standards, which is very important to us here at NIST. And we've ensured that this framework, along with all of our other guidance and resources, really is complementary to guidance and standards people already use, whether ISO 27001 or NIST's own Security Control Catalog 853 and other existing standards. So we've made it even easier now and developed an online informative reference program or a repository for mappings and crosswalks so people can see how to use our guidance along with existing standards that they may already be using and help us keep up in real time as they're revised or new ones added. And on that international front, we have previous versions of our framework translated and up to 9 different international translations with version 2.0. We've been working closely within ISO with our international partners there to bring contributions from this framework and others and ensure that our work is aligned with those international standards. And you can even find reference documents that we've helped contribute to, and they don't say NIST or US government, so just another resource available for someone who's looking for tools to manage their cybersecurity risk. And this afternoon, you'll hear from one of my colleagues who leads our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, where we also continue working closely with industry to develop guidance that's free and available online and really helps to take the approach of the framework and tailor it for use across critical infrastructure sectors. We even have some tailored around specific threats like ransomware. This afternoon, or right now ongoing, is a workshop to develop a profile around cybersecurity and AI using the framework. So we're very excited that we can continue that close collaboration with industry and with our government partners to both update that guidance and develop resources, whether for small or medium-sized organizations or for others who are looking to use the framework for the first time. So very much appreciate the chance to continue working with everyone, even with that version available, and look forward to hearing feedback and where we can continue going for future updates or other resources we can develop for managing cybersecurity risk. So with that, I think I'll pause, but again, always happy to answer any questions or talk about how we can work and support from the NIST end, and look forward to hearing from my fellow panelists. Thank you.
Well done, Amy. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to have Dean Scontras, VP of Public Sector for Wiz.
Awesome. I have to go after the NIST person, of course. And she told me she would be, underwhelmed so I could overwhelm, but she was overwhelming, so well done, Amy. But I wanted to talk to you about Wiz today. It's not so much a program, but in fear of sounding like a ShamWow commercial, it's a product, and it's a new way of doing cyber for government. In fact, I'm going to start with a quote that came from one of our customers. It was 2 years ago. I thought it was a little bit overzealous at the time, but he said, Wiz is going to change the way government does cyber. Like I said, I just thought at the time that might be a little bit far-reaching, but now I'm a true believer, and so are many other customers. In fact, over the course of the next several months during my first year at Wiz, we heard from DoD components, civilian agencies, DIB customers that have similar enthusiastic reactions to seeing Wiz. In fact, it was so much I started gathering all these quotes into one slide because I always think customer testimony is always the best. So I wanted to share a few of those. One FedSI, after reviewing Wiz and seeing the platform for the first time, said, "This is awesome, I'm smiling." A DoD customer said, "Wiz is exactly what our 2-star asked for." And then another said, "I haven't seen a tool like this that provides real-time monitoring and dashboard ever." But more than just the emotional component is the evidence. So, pardon me, I'm a salesperson. I lead a sales team, so we talk in sales terminology, but 90% of our POVs, so when we plug into a customer's production environment, 90% of those POVs convert to be customers. That's fairly overwhelming. So something happens during that POV, some visibility that they don't see previously. So that's a really component. So once we plug in and you see what you see, you can't unsee it and eventually become a Wiz customer. But it's more than just an emotional reaction, for sure. So I want to give really kind of the 3 reasons and the 3 reasons only why I think this is true with Wiz and why it's so game-changing and timely. One is first mover status, which is always the case with startups and innovators. But our founders actually came from Microsoft. And it was there where they saw that legacy siloed tools that were really reverse engineered from the on-prem to be in cloud were not doing the job and creating a lot of gap and risk for customers. So as I said before, once we plug in, you can't unsee it. But Gartner shortly thereafter actually came up with a new classification or category called CNAPP, which means Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. The operative word there is cloud native, which was we were the first cloud native security solution to be built and architected for the cloud. And that's really, truly important. So we lead that category right now. The next thing is the current way. The current way of doing, which we call the Wiz way, is related to those very siloed tools. Those siloed tools create gaps, don't allow for visibility, and most importantly, it doesn't answer the question, what's most important, why, and how do I remediate it immediately? I often hear this from both agency and security and compliance teams as well, who have to manually assemble reports from different scanners and siloed tools, and it produces volumes of false positives that they then have to manually go through and eventually compile into a POAM. That takes a lot of time. It reduces the time to cloud. I think one customer in compliance called it a Christmas tree of red lights. Wiz fills those technical and organizational gaps that lead to risk and simplify that process. When we plug a Wiz into an agency's cloud environment, usually that personnel can see their multi-cloud estate instantly with complete context, no red lights at all. And by virtue of the platform, final point, by virtue of the platform, Wiz changes the way agencies do security. We call that, and a lot of people in the industry call it, democratizing security. And what that means, a single platform that all stakeholders can use, that see the same information and allow them to collaborate across those silos, whereas previously they were separated by those tools. One of my favorite analogies for this is when Log4j vulnerability broke out, the customer plugged Wiz into their environment, and security, cloud, and developers could all see where those vulnerabilities were, which posed the most threat and how to mitigate it immediately. That is the Wiz way. When you plug Wiz in, it rarely comes out. So I was going to call this CMMC in a box just to appease Stacy, but it's not just for CMMC. It's for FedRAMP, it's for agencies, it's for the entire country's cybersecurity supply chain. So Wiz is truly changing the way that not only government does security, but everybody does security. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, and that is a perfect transition here to our next speaker, Stacy Bostjanik, Chief Defense Industrial Base Cybersecurity for DoD. Come on up.
I'm not usually good at standing behind a podium, and I think it's probably because I need a step stool, right? Okay, and the lights are bright. But let me see a show of hands. How many people want to hear about CMMC? None of you. All right, you're bored. All right, how about the DIBCS program? You want to hear about that? All right, I'll give you a little bit of both. So, CMMC in a box. All right, so I'm Stacy Bostjanik. I am the Chief of DIB Cybersecurity for the CIO, and I have CMMC and the DIBCS program within my portfolio, and soon I'll be taking over the supply chain risk management aspect of the DoD mission as well. So, CMMC. So I saw a couple of hands. I guess the other question is, how many of you have never heard of CMMC and don't know why we do it? All right, so you guys, oh, wait, she raised her hand, but are you saying you don't know about CMMC? Okay, so CMMC, Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. The reason that we're doing it is there's a little clause that most contractors have in their contracts. I'm going to geek out now, 252-204-7012. Are you guys familiar with what that is? Okay, so that clause says if you handle controlled unclassified information, you must comply with the NIST 800-171 standards. Now, the one question I'm going to have for Amy is, can we make that an ISO standard? Right, because that'll make my life a lot easier if we have it as an ISO standard. And so that says you have to meet the 110 requirements outlined there, which protects the confidentiality of that data. So in 2018, 2019, that clause went into effect. You had to do it by 2017, December 31st. 2018, the DoD IG went out, and the Navy Cyber Readiness Review, and they went to different contractor sites, and they said, let me see. They weren't doing it, right? What we saw was you had to have a system security plan and a POAM to get there. We've had several companies, their POAMs weren't going to be completed till 2099. I'll be dead. Right? So what does that mean for the security of our nation? That means that a lot of our data that we spend countless taxpayers' dollars, your money, to develop these weapon systems gets stolen in a period of 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes with quantum, right? And what we end up in a scenario is that the Chinese now have the F-35, right? We are losing our data on a regular basis. So we are asking contractors who handle that information to meet those requirements. So now that you guys all know, and I know you guys all knew, why we do it and why we have it, where are we? In December 16th of 2024, the 32 CFR rule, how many of you read my 400-page rule? All right, y'all are hurting my feelings now. So we published a rule that described the requirements down to the nth degree for companies to meet the CMMC requirement. The 48 CFR is currently in process. I know you guys are familiar with the EOs that are out there that says we have to get rid of 10 regulations for every one, but there are exemptions to that. Our team is rapidly looking at all avenues and aspects to be able to comply with the current administration's requirement. I do not expect the new administration to stop this. It was begun under the first Trump administration, and when you look at the statistics that we're losing $100 million like a day in data loss in the country, this is something we have to get on top of. I know people feel that it's a very onerous, expensive rule, but when you look at the amount of data we lose, it's a drop in the bucket comparatively. Now, I've got 1:24 left. There's also the DIBS CS program. And Melissa's going to tell you some really cool whiz-bang things because we partner with DC3, and they have capabilities that companies can voluntarily submit to help them. Now, they don't necessarily get you CMMC compliant. They may match with one or two of the requirements. You still have a requirement to meet the other 108. Right, or what have you to get compliant. We highly suggest if you are on your journey, there are a lot of different innovative capabilities that are coming out that are lowering the cost of compliance and making it easy for companies to get there. So I look forward to Amy making it an ISO standard so I can get all my international partners on board with us. We are not accepting reciprocity with our international partners. We are calling it integration. And I know you guys all read the rule, and you all know this already, that what we've said is everybody has to follow the same processes and procedures. I am not going to let the UK get off easier than the US companies. So they're going to have C3PAOs. They're going to have assessors that are trained and examined. They're going to have that Tier 3 suitability determination in their country, and they're going to have to work with our AB here in the United States because that's our group that we're going to do business with. So anyway, I look forward to Melissa telling you all the cool stuff she does and answering your questions. Thank you.
Well done, Stacy. Thank you so much. So next, we have Melissa Weiss, Director of Vulnerability Disclosure Program for DC3. She'll be talking about finding vulnerabilities before they find you.
Yes. All right, I'm going to do a show of hands as well. I'm Melissa Weiss. I'm the Director of the Vulnerability Disclosure Program. And also, as Stacy pitched up for me, the new Defense Industrial Base Vulnerability Disclosure Program. So I'll talk a bit about both. But before I start, how many people have a vulnerability disclosure program or a policy in place? My colleague over here at CISA certainly does. So that's great. I see a lot of folks that are like, nope, don't have that. So let me tell you a little bit about DC3 to begin with. We are a federal cybercrime center. Our mission as a cybercrime center is to deliver innovative expertise for law enforcement, counterintelligence, cybersecurity, and national security partners. So we have a lot of different components within DC3. We have a training academy. If you're not aware of that, we offer courses for anyone who has a CAC or a PIV, so check those out. We also have analytical specialties, and in all of the foreign country languages that we need for kicker. So we do cybercrime facilities and forensics. So basically for all of the MDCOs, so any of the military organizations will send their hard cases to us for expertise that we've invested in over the years. And so all these capabilities together help to make this all of these other assets and capabilities for large groups of folks. Now, Stacy did pitch up for me another one of the programs, another area, which is called our DICE program. And again, it is a long acronym. It doesn't actually even spell out to look like DICE, but it is, they run the DivCS program, the cybersecurity program. And so it is for the defense industrial base and for the partnerships there. You can find out all about all the details. Again, I only in my 2 minutes left, so don't have time to tell you all the great capabilities, but you can check us out at dc3.mil, give you more information. Now, I wanted to talk a bit about finding vulnerabilities before they find you. Again, with the DoD version, the VDP, the original VDP, we were stood up in 2016 out of a SecDef memo, and we came out of a bug bounty program that Ash Carter ran at that time with Defense Digital Service, or DDS, which is now part of CDAO. And we were tapped then to be the ingestion point for all vulnerability reporting for Joint Force Headquarters DODN and U.S. Cyber Command. And if that sounds like a big job, it kind of is. Since that time, we have processed 55,000 reports, with 30,000 of those being actionable. And just like Stacy had mentioned, you know, these are some big high target assets that are being attacked daily. So it is very important to get ahead of those vulnerabilities. The uniqueness of our program is that we ingest those reports from crowdsourced ethical researchers in 45 different countries. It comes into our group within DC3. We triage, validate those reports, and then get them over to Joint Force Headquarters DODN for timely remediation. So we have to really be quick on these. Because we've had this turnkey operation, we have a proven talent for doing this. A few years back, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could offer this out for the defense industrial base as well? And so that is what birthed the DIB VDP, the Defense Industrial Base Vulnerability Disclosure Program. Now, it's relatively new. It was just launched June of last year. Again, you can check out information about joining. It is a no-fee operation for the industrial, anyone in the cleared contract area. So if you have a covered network, come and see us, see what we can do for you. But it certainly, as rules are coming out, as new things are coming within the DFARS and maybe even in legislation that says you have to have now your own vulnerability disclosure policies or similar things, it's good to know what capabilities are already out there for you to assist. So I would hope you would check that out. And then I just have a final little six seconds here. And I just want to say we have loved being a partnership with NIST over the years. We also have, we co-authored with CISA to create the 800-216 on the DoD's vulnerability disclosures and management. So another resource that you can check out as well. Thank you.
Well, next we get the Q&A portion. So I'm going to hand out these two mics. We'll share one for here and one here.
I'm giving it to you first. My voice is so loud.
Sorry. Okay, so just a follow-up, thank you again for those great presentations and good rundowns of exactly some of the great work that everyone's doing there. One of the first questions I wanted to jump into is I couldn't help but be taken back by how there's so much dependence on each of these different groups, and that's why I think it's such a great opportunity to have this panel up on stage with us now. So the first question I wanted to ask was, how is collaboration going across these different groups? Because that is usually an area in which there is quite a bit of challenge with government agencies, and sometimes that stovepiping happens from time to time. So I'm wondering how that's going so far, and where maybe things can improve in the future. So Stacy, why don't you start for us?
So
Can you grab the mic there for that?
Oh,
Thanks.
come on. All right. So we do have a close and continuous relationship with most of our federal partners. There's a federal CISO council that we go to and work with as we are rolling out these different requirements across the government. I don't know, so, I was underwhelmed how many of you read my rule, but how many of you are aware that there is a FAR CUI clause that's in effect that people are working through now? Okay, so that FAR CUI is going to bring that NIST 800-171 standard to all of federal government, right? And it is going to be a FAR clause that's going to require anybody who handles CUI to meet that. So it's going to expand that whole landscape there. So we met with the federal CISOs, right? And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Rev 3 of the NIST 800-171. Okay, so are you guys just tired of raising your hand, or are you really not? All right, so that Rev 3 has operationally defined parameters, ODPs, right? And so NIST didn't define them, and there are like 80 of them. And so, one of the things that we're trying to do in this collaboration is ensure that we come up with a standard across all the federal government, because think about what a fun time it would be if DoD requires you to have a 17-character password with 3 original, different characters in it, and NASA requires you to have one that's 15 characters, right? How are you going to manage that? And, it's funny because we also talk a lot with our industry partners, right? We have a council capability where we meet with them to get the feedback. So, and that's the thing, one of their big things was, do you realize how much money it costs me to change the length of a password? And what it causes me to have to do. And then another big argument was how many minutes before it times you out and you have to re-put your password in. People get very passionate about that. Don't make me do it after 2 minutes, right? So those are the kinds of things that we try to make sure we collaborate with. And then we deal a lot with Vicki Piliteri at NIST, and who's come up with the Rev 3 and is very eager for that to be incorporated into the CMMC program. Now, we have to go through the one group. This is non-attribution. Is there any news in here? Any press? So OMB OIRA, right? They're the ones that are making us make a rule change to incorporate that Rev 3. And that would be the one area where we need better collaboration and work, because we are not able to keep with the pace of the threat. Right now, when we impose a regulation on our industry partners, it is a 2-year effort, a slog, if you will, to get through that and get that through. And that doesn't keep pace with the threat. So we definitely need to alter that and figure out a way to change that.
Okay.
I've eaten up all my time.
No, good. Anybody else? Amy, do you? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And from the NIST perspective, we're very appreciative of the collaboration we have with EOD and HISA and others. And I think we have really great and strong relationships across the government to bring in that input and feedback for our guidance documents. And on the industry side, I know it's much easier for us, and we enjoy having the ability to have more candid and open conversations because we are non-regulatory. So when we're updating either our cybersecurity framework, we're updating our privacy framework right now as well. And glad to see my colleagues over there on the wall, Ryan, who leads our digital identity work. We had an 863 document where, again, we asked for that extensive input and put documents out for comment and gather people for workshops at our National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And people will really tell us about the challenges and issues they're seeing, because we're not putting any sanctions or punishments, or if we hear that there's been an incident, but we really want to learn from them and see what they went through and bring that into our guidance documents to help be able to make the more helpful cybersecurity risk management tools. So in general, that's going to continue to be our way to reach out to our government friends and put documents out for comment and have these discussions to make sure we're really bringing in all of that input and making these tools helpful and updating them on a more frequent and regular basis so they're not getting stale, and really bringing in what people are seeing. So we've been appreciative of the collaboration, but again, always welcome input or thoughts on what more we could be doing or resources we could develop to make it easier to use our documents or use them together. So those conversations are always still open. Thank you.
Dean, just to bring you into this, maybe from an industry perspective, how are you seeing in terms of the collaboration from the government,
Sure.
from a regulation standpoint, and some of the
Well,
different rules?
one, as Wiz has grown, and we now have over 50% of the Fortune 100, the threat intelligence we get from industry and we do share with various government bodies. So I think there's another side of Wiz that's actively participating with the government from a threat intelligence perspective. So that is a cross collaboration. We did the DeepSeek vulnerability a few weeks ago, if you saw that, and again the one last week, the Ingress one 2 weeks ago. And then I think also from a tools perspective, we provide you all those vulnerabilities and all those risk management frameworks that you can map against as a government customer, so you know if you're in compliance or out of compliance.
I actually would just say that at DC3, part of our mission statement is actually making these purposeful and exacting partnerships. We really look to strengthen partnerships, and so that's why we reach across. And vulnerabilities is kind of a small niche area, but we certainly partner with NSA and the CCC. We partner with CISA and the KEV. We really try to get a whole of government approach, and it's not a duplicative operation. It is really how can we help and support other agencies get the most out of vulnerabilities that we see.
Okay, excellent. Well, the follow-up question I had for you, Melissa, is the great work that DC3 is doing, coupled with how much of these emerging technologies are really gaining a lot of steam. Where are you seeing the most vulnerabilities being reported from those different technologies?
It's funny because I probably have never done any talks whatsoever that I haven't been asked kind of a minority report question, like, can you predict? And no, we would love to be able to predict, but honestly, a lot of what we see is going to be CWEs, or common weakness enumerations, and it's a bit of one-offs, it's not even really that sexy. It is honestly your cyber hygiene. It's all the stuff that you take training for every year. It is, do your patching on time, make sure that you're keeping. Implement the 171, right? Put that CMMC in a box. And so it really is a lot of that. Now, we do get these outliers. You brought up Log4j. That was one that we were able to spin up a real quick bug bounty on for Joint Force Headquarters Doden and get ahead of that very quickly within 2 days of that 0-day popping. So we get these bright stars out there sometimes, but I can tell you the day-to-day, it's fairly mundane, but it's really weaknesses. It's things that we could tackle and get rid of if we all focus together.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Melissa. Let's bring it back to CMMC. What, from your perspective, maybe I'll ask both Stacy and Dean about this, what has been the biggest challenge in terms of the adoption of CMC over these past few years?
Probably recognition and understanding, right? It's really hard to get people to read the rule, right? And what I will tell you is we do events like this quite regularly. We're trying to get the word out, and it's amazing to me the number of members of the DIB that are still like, CMM what, right? And then the reticence behind it, right? Because when we started this in it actually started in 2013. Right? So we've had a minute to work on this. And what we found is because the original clause didn't have a lot of teeth in it, you had to have a system security plan and a POAM to get there. And so what people did was they met the minimum bar. And because nobody was coming in to check to see where they were, they set their POAM end date to 2099. And they said, oh, I'm compliant, I can still get a contract, right? And so we start bleeding data like crazy. And so now the recognition that that loss of data is important and pertinent, right? I mean, it's not like getting attacked like we did on 9/11 where you can see the evidence, but we are being attacked every day. And, I don't know that it drives it home when I get on my soapbox and I whine that, today, because the Chinese have the same aircraft that my pilots in the U.S. Military have. They have to depend on their skill. In an armed conflict, they no longer have the superior weapon system, right? They no longer have the slam dunk, right? And my children are of military age, right? Because I'm old as dirt. And I need my kids to come home and take care of their mother because I'm getting old, right? And I don't want them to have to depend just on their skill. I want them to be able to have that slam dunk and come home. But it's not easy to drive that point home to people, because until you have a child that's in that armed conflict that you're worried about, it's not real, right? And I think that's the hard part, is convincing people that the cyber threat to this nation is real. And, you know, I don't know if anybody's ever followed me on LinkedIn, but, you know, I even asked, what's it going to take? What's it going to take? Are we going to have our hospitals go down for a month and lose 150 to 200 people because somebody attacked that through cyber? That it makes sense to people and they're willing to do something about it.
Okay. Dean, how about you from?
I can tell you something is actually starting to translate, because between this time last year and now, we have seen a significant uptick in inbound for CMMC compliance, which I think is a good thing. In fact, you know, we're joking about it, CMMC in a box, but I know we have a partner here that we've since partnered with to get them entirely through the process from audit and ATO, or audit to ATO, and which Wiz is a component of. So it is a real thing, and we've got that out there actually now in the marketplace. Again, if I look at my business over time, people are becoming, including higher ed, including CSP, cloud service providers. Everybody is, not everybody, but there are a lot of them calling. I think the difficult thing for industry is how to get the word out that there is a solution that they can adopt today, like CMMC in a box. Keep hitting on it, that can get them from beginning to end with a solution like Wiz and a company like RiskPoint.
Do you think that it took the False Claims Act issues against those universities to get them to get religion on it?
It's funny you say that, because the big uptick is from universities, right? Which is, you know, I've had millions of conversations with universities, but they are for the first time reaching out to us saying we need to be FedRAMP because we need to be CMMC compliant.
Georgia Tech and Penn State were probably the
There's
first two,
10.
right?
Yep, I'll mark that one down and call them this afternoon.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. Well, Amy, I had a question for you. When we were thinking about international standards, I was wondering, what is the part of the world that poses the biggest challenge in terms of not establishing standards and then having them adopt them?
Oh, thank you for that question. Might be a little challenging to answer, and I don't know if there's any specific area I would to call out, but in general, we've been working closely in standards development organizations, and with NIST, we really do try to work across all regions and working closely with State Department and in Commerce, our International Trade Administration, our other government partners to help identify areas where it would be helpful to share some of our work. As I noted, a lot of our work, especially as a result of that international engagement and what we learned from other partners and their policies and approaches, that helps us put together our work in such a way that we think it's helpful to bring into a place like ISO, where, again, hearing Stacy's comments, I know that is always something we hear too during our update process.
Help me.
Where we do hear that, where I know with NIST guidance, it's not quite the same traditional looking standard with that certification or compliance element, and companies or others will ask, how do we have this be a standard to show we're doing it? And we've checked these boxes, and we do see those challenges, but have tried to really keep it more risk-based and make sure it's easier for all users to be able to look at it and find functions and categories. As I said, we updated and put out some guidance like small business resources where, again, not telling them what are the 10 things you should do, but offering some suggestions and giving people that flexibility to be able to choose from what might work for them and their specific needs or critical infrastructure needs or stakeholder requirements or whatever is needed on their end. So that's why it's made it hard for us to have it be a checklist or say these are the 50 or 100 things and what are people able to do. And we do see those across other countries and have those conversations and see them facing those challenges as well. But I'd say that's been pretty universal. So
Okay.
Thank
Excellent.
you.
Well, thank you, Amy, very much. All right. Well, I think that concludes our time for the lightning round. So I'd like to give a round of applause for our speakers here. So thank you very much.